Hello, I'm Hickey, and welcome to People in Perspective. Joining me today is Ana Belaval, the Around Town reporter for WGN Morning News. Thank you for coming on.
Hi, Liam.
Great to see you.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm
happy that you're here too. So to start, what were some of your inspirations that led you to be where you are now as a reporter?
So I think I discovered at age 14 that I wanted to be a news reporter. I've always been very much a performer, but when I went to do a school report on a career that I admired, and I interviewed a news director at a local station in Puerto Rico, because that's where I grew up. And when I went into the newsroom, I loved the vibe. I saw people running around. I saw people, editing stories. And I love that adrenaline that I felt there and that idea of knowing the information first and being responsible for telling the story. And I thought right then and there, this is where I want to be. This is how I want to feel every day of my life. That passion, that idea that I have the information and I have to tell it the best way I can through images. And of course, it lets me perform on camera and all that stuff. And I have to tell you, I never had the self-esteem to put up with the audition process as an actor. So I'm like, this could be a good compromise. So I would say I didn't have an inspiration in a person. I just loved the career when I discovered it.
That's great. And do you still have that same excitement even today?
Yeah, I do. Ridiculous, but I love what I do. I think when you become a reporter, there's a passion to it and a vocation that it's a lot more than a career because we sacrifice a lot.
Yeah.
I do a lot of fun stuff now, but when I started as a local general assignment reporter. So I had no holidays, very few vacation days, and I missed Christmas and my best friend's wedding and New Year's. I missed a lot of that stuff. So, but you have to have passion for what you do. It's like a vocation. So to this day, I wake up and I am excited about what new thing am I going to discover? What story am I going to tell? Who am I going to meet? It's always about the people that I get to meet and tell their stories.
That's great, because only one can hope that they just wake up excited for their job every single day.
It's true. My husband always tells me, you think that everyone has that luxury, and I think that's like 10% of the population, really.
Yeah, you wish it'd be more.
Yeah.
And so you're describing kind of about that life before and how that got you excited. Could you go into depth a little bit more? What were your jobs prior to WGN?
So when I turned 14, my dad said, you have to get a summer job and you need to do it or I'm going to find you a job. And my uncle had an insurance company that I worked for in the summers, and it was super boring. It was filing papers and so on. And I said, I want to work in the newsroom. So I called the news director I had interviewed, and I begged him to make me an intern, which did not pay. But my parents are like, at least she's out of the house, and she's doing something in the summers. So I was the eternal intern in a newsroom all through high school and all through college. My first real job was as a reporter for Univision here in Chicago. So when I graduated college from the American University in DC, I went back home thinking I could get a job as a reporter because I had worked at that local station for so long.
Sure.
But there were no opportunities. And because I had interned at Univision, I let my mentor know, like, where should I go? She said, well, Chicago's looking for somebody. And I knew nobody in Chicago. And we Puerto Ricans know everyone in every corner of the world. I had a cousin who lived in Melbourne, Australia, but
wow.
I knew no one here. But I came because that was my dream. And I swore I would never live in another cold place. And I moved to one of the coldest cities in the world, I swear. But I did it because I had that dream. And I wanted to be a TV reporter right out of college. So that's where I started at Univision Chicago. I was there as a general assignment reporter for 6 years. I became a weekend anchor. And meanwhile, I freelanced for their morning show, which is called Despierta America, which is like Wake Up America. And I was their correspondent in Chicago. Then they moved me to New York City. I was their East Coast correspondent. So I worked with the network for 3 years. And then I did the crossover into English at WGN in 2005.
And how was that, doing that crossover into English?
It was very intimidating because I had a 9-year-long career, but it was always in Spanish. I had never spoken English on TV, but I've been fluent since I was in kindergarten. I went to a Catholic school that was dual immersion.
Oh, wow.
And so I had done journalism, and the rules of journalism are the same in any language. So I knew I could do it. I had the credentials and I had the experience. but it was very intimidating because of the accent, right? Because my first language is Spanish. So that was what was intimidating. But I think I found the perfect place because at WGN, we're personality driven, and what they like is for you to be yourself and be authentic. And so they were like, what accent? We love how you tell your stories. Just do it the way you know how to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone appreciated that for sure. And so now at WGN, could you give us a little more insight onto what life is like on a normal day for you? What do you do each morning?
So it depends on where I'm going. I don't drive to the location. I don't drive to the station. I can meet my crew at the location. So I have to be at the location at 7 in the morning. So depending on where I'm at, I live in the city. So I get up between 4:30 in the morning. 5 is the latest I'll wake up. I have to do hair and makeup at my house because we don't have hair and makeup. And but I have it down to a science so I can sleep. And then, factor in how long the drive is and get to the location at 7. Then we go on the air 7 times live between 7:55 in the morning and 10 in the morning. Nothing is scripted. So we get to a location. I have a producer who actually is from the area. And Natalie books all the stories. And then we get to the location and she and I work producing it because you may show up and what they told you was going to happen is not, and we have to make it up as we go. And she makes sure that everything is set and on time. We travel with the same crew, our camera lady who's Mary Bowenton, and our engineer who's Gerald Jackson most days. So that's how we travel. We travel in a crew of 4. We get to the location, we broadcast live. And then when we're done, because of COVID, we've been working from home, and she goes home and has to book all these segments. I've worked with great producers since I started at WGN, and I think they've been the secret to my success because I have somebody who will book this. I don't have to do it on my own because this segment is every day live and has to be very visual. So Natalie goes home and calls me and books my stuff, and we talk about the segments and what we need. And I do a lot of social media as well. And then after 3 o'clock, I pick up my kids, and I'm a mom for the rest of the afternoon.
Mom for the rest of the afternoon. You love to hear that. So you're talking about social media. That's a whole new aspect of the game now. You're so used to the television business and the news business. With social media now, I know that you're verified. How are you handling that? How are you staying relevant to teens our age?
I'm verified. So you have to adapt. You have to. I think it's very important that you adapt and that you move with the times, that you don't get stuck doing the same thing the same way. And you'll find ways to do social media that meet your needs and that, the way that you want to do it. So I started a YouTube channel a year and a half ago, and I have about over 7,500 followers there. But it's really hard. That is not easy. All of that takes a lot of time. Because I'm on TV and I'm used to editing stories and making them look good, I obsess with making sure that our material looks good, which apparently people of the social media generation don't really care. But I have to figure out, content is content sometimes. So I also do a Facebook podcast on Wednesdays in the afternoon called Wednesday Wine, where I get to interview whoever I feel like inviting, and it's just like a very informal chat with my followers. On that one, on Facebook, I have over 100,000 followers. And then on Instagram, I may have over 50,000 followers. But, I have a social media manager who tells me what each audience wants to see. And so Facebook is a little older. Instagram is a little more visual. I don't really do TikTok or Twitter. So it's a whole new world. But honestly, Liam, I love what I do so much that this is just an extension of what I do. So it doesn't really bother me.
That's great to hear. So social media, it's clearly very important to you. And I know what's also very important to you is your Puerto Rican heritage. Could you speak a little bit more on that?
Oh my goodness. It's a badge of honor that I walk around with. I think that the reason I wanted to do the crossover is because I wanted to represent my people every day in mainstream media and to show them that we were not necessarily the stereotype that you see on mainstream media all the time, and that I not necessarily had to cover only the Latino topics, right? So I think that it's like a dream come true to be able to represent the island. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, you become ambassadors for a lot of people who don't know. After Hurricane Maria, I found myself explaining the relationship between Puerto Rico and the U.S. and advocating for our rights as citizens. It's a huge responsibility because you're representing the so-called minority. So, but for me, it's important. I can't divorce myself from it. When I'm, raising my kids here, as you know, my husband is not Puerto Rican. And when I met him, I told him my kids have to have an identity. They have to know where I'm from because it makes me different. And I think it makes me special. And the fact that I can speak 2 languages was important for them to know. And my behavior and the way that I raised them is just attached to my culture and where I'm from. Plus, my family lives down there. So I go to see them all the time. So I can't have one. There's no Ana Belaval without saying she's from Puerto Rico 5 minutes into a conversation. I think it took 3 minutes here for me to tell you where I'm from.
Well, there's a lot of people. It's clear that there are a lot of people that really care about you, and you kind of seem as an ambassador to them when it comes to Puerto Rico. They look up to you, and I'm sure what they all want to know as well is there any interesting places in Chicago you can tell us?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask this, and because I go to so many places, I made a list of the latest. I checked my Instagram for them. So you're going to be like, oh my God, they're all museums. But honestly, Chicago has some of the best museums. And we love, and around town, the Museum of Science and Industry. What I love about my job is that I go when these places are empty, which is not a benefit a lot of people have. But the Museum of Science and Industry will take you days to see the whole thing.
It's so big.
I love the Chicago History Museum because it really does have great exhibitions about the rich history of our city, especially our immigrant history. And Garfield Park Conservatory, to go there on a cold day, they have beautiful greenhouses. They have really neat stuff there, and it's free. Or they may be charging a fee now. I don't remember. Whirly Ball is super cool. You guys can go before 6 p.m. because then it becomes a bar. And then there's a really cool place called Royal Palms where you can play shuffleboard in Bucktown. And that's really, really neat. When you go to the Chicago History Museum, that's in Old Town, if you can catch a show at Second City, because I'm partial to comedy, that is the place to go to.
Well, you just said you're partial to comedy. Could you give us a little bit more? Because actually, I'm not sure if a lot of the audience knows, but you actually do stand-up as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that's like and how is it like being in front of a crowd?
It's the hardest thing I've ever done because I do it alone, and it's personal material that I explore. When it works, it's the most amazing feeling. When it doesn't, it's the worst feeling in the world. And I love it. It's cathartic, but it's a lot harder than when I do on TV, even though the TV work has helped me because WGN Morning News is a very funny show, and I improvise every day. So that has helped with the stand-up comedy. But yeah, you have no one to feed off of when you're doing stand-up comedy. It's just you alone. So yeah, it's very hard, but very rewarding.
I feel like there's a common phrase that says comedy is the hardest genre for any actor or actress to do.
Yeah.
So that's, such a new experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we're wondering, you're doing comedy. You have so many experiences doing so many things, doing in the news business and comedy. Are there any tips or skills you could give to any upcoming reporters who maybe might want to have your job when they're older?
I think you need to polish your writing skills, polish your public speaking skills, learn how to edit your own material, learn how to shoot your own material, and find a passion in telling stories, and just know that it is a very hard job and that it looks very glamorous, but it is a grind, and that you have to make sure that everyone in your family understands that too, and is there to support you, because you are going to miss a lot of important moments by chasing after the news, and you have to be surrounded by people that when you come home are happy to see you and embrace you and understand your passion.
All that work being put on behind the scenes, no one really realizes that, but it's a lot of work, I can definitely assume. Well, Ana, thank you so much for coming on to the show to talk about your impressive reporting career. I'm Liam Hickey, and see you next time on People in Perspective.